Farmer Jason here at Wave Fruit Farm. Wanted to give you an idea of what we do in the wintertime, first of all, for those of you that don't follow along. And also, too, we get a lot of pruning questions this time of year. This is not going to be a full pruning video by any stretch. This is just going to give you an idea of how much we actually do sometimes to our trees to get them back. These trees behind me are Johnny Golds. Johnny Golds are a very good apple, for those of you who haven't had them. It's a Golden Delicious crossed with a Jonathan. They're very sweet, bake really well. They're also a great growing tree. These trees grow really, really well, actually too well. And that's part of why we have to trim them so hard. Johnny Golds are a very fast growing tree. And so these are dwarf trees, but you can see behind me, it doesn't really look too dwarf. These guys, even though they're a dwarf, they really caught on and grew tall. So normally we just go through and we'll just pull off a lot of these suckers and we'll do normal trimming. But this year we decided that we needed to do more because last year the quality of the apple wasn't too good. And I'll show you later inside our packing house what the difference was that I'm looking for in quality. And so we decided we were going to take a big whack at these trees and really try to take some things off. So I've already started on that side of the trees. We'll go over there and we'll look at them. But it is wintertime too, so I have to be careful because it's all icy and snowy, and so I got to make sure I don't fall. But you can see just how aggressive this tree is. I mean, there's just branches everywhere. I mean, it's just branches like crazy. And so some of the ones that I've already pulled off are here in the center. This gives you an idea of how much this tree grew. This is 1 year's growth on top. These suckers are as tall as me, and that grew in 1 year. They grew that tall. So we're gonna get in there, we're gonna really saw these, and I'll show you what that looks like. I'm gonna try to attach you to me, so we'll see how this works. All right, I'm gonna use this pole saw, which is just a chainsaw on a bar to try to do this. Gotta watch, make sure they don't fall towards me. Give them a little shove. They weigh a good bit of weight. So that's the basic gist of it. These trees are more tall than they are. These trees, a lot of them, what I'm doing is I have to take out the toss because they've gotten too tall. Over here on the other side, I normally do one side of trees at a time. These trees on this side are actually bigger. And so one of the things that I'm doing with these trees is taking out a lot of big bottom branches. So I'll show you what we're doing with them. We'll get in here, pull a lot of this branch out. tops I cut out earlier. Ugh. Like this big bottom one, I don't like anything about this one. Another big one that I don't like a whole lot about it, but we'll maybe leave part of it. Again, I don't like the top of this one, so we're going to take the whole thing out. So that's how this goes. All right, so the goal of what I was doing with the chainsaw was to get out these big chunks, these huge branches that I pulled out that you just watched me do. I mean, you can kind of see, I'll put my hand against this one. You know, like that's, look at that cut. You know, it's a massive cut. And the branch that came out of it was this. You know, big as me, hard to even pick up, it weighs so much. But the reason we do this, the reason we prune in general, is the fact that we want the tree to have less volume on it so the apples get better. But then on this one's, what I really need to do is get more sun penetration in there. And I'll show you here in a few seconds why that's so critical. But it really is critical to get that sun penetration in through these canopies. And so I take a big chunk out of them. For those of you that are trained chainsaw people, you will notice that my chain was getting pretty dull. That's why I had a little trouble getting through that big one. Part of that is because these trees, or because they're dwarf trees, have these poles and this line. And when I do this row, I have a tendency to hit those poles. So these are the last couple trees in the row. Once I move on to the next ones, we'll switch a chain and make it a little bit easier for me to cut. But that's what we do. We stay out here playing the ice and the snow in the wintertime and do that. So I'm gonna show you what this transforms into once we're done with the whole process of me going through with the big thing and then coming through with the little clippers. All right, so after all that hard work of sawing and then we came back through with the pruners, this is what the trees end up looking like. And this is perfect. Extra stick from up above. So this is perfect. These trees have a lot of fruit buds on them. The fruit buds are already on there for next year. So let me take my glove off there. So you can see right in here, these are all fruit buds. Like that's a fruit bud right there. And so these branches have a lot of fruit buds on them. Right there's more and more. So there's lots of fruit buds on these trees, and what we've done is we've exposed them to a lot of sun. My pruning philosophy is the tree's got to see sun in order to produce good fruit, as well as keep regenerating itself for the future years. If we let too many of these big branches, in there, all that it does is they grow what we call suckers, which were those big things I showed you that grew like crazy. All that happens is they grow like crazy, and then the fruit doesn't look any good, the tree gets unhealthy, there's a lot more disease. And so we take a very aggressive approach, as I showed you, where we chainsaw a lot out of these trees and get them back to where they're supposed to be, which is a dwarf tree, which is not that big of branches and lots of fruit buds and not many big branches. So a lot of hard work. I'm sort of sore after doing, you can kind of see the full row behind me. We were doing the last, that was the last 5 trees on each side that I showed you us cutting. And so glad to get done, glad to move on and get on to the next set of trees here. So this is wintertime in Pennsylvania. You can see the sunset going down behind me. All right, we're gonna take a fun ride into the packing house through all the snow, and I will show you why it's important to have the trees small with lots of sunlight. All right, we're heading into the packing house in my truck here. See my chainsaw in the back there, and off we go. It's a bumpy ride because all this snow is rough getting through. So we got her in 4-wheel drive, and it's crooked and bouncy, and in through the big snowfall. So all right, we'll come back, and this is just one of our orchards. This is the one by the store that we're working in today, but we still have a lot to go on other orchards, so hopefully spring doesn't come too quickly. All right, I wanted to end off the video with explaining why it's so important that we prune as hard as we do. So now we're in our cooler in here. It's getting sort of late in the season. I mean, it's still cold, so we're still in the February time frame, but we can store apples in here for quite a few months. It all depends upon the variety. We keep it at 34 degrees in here with high humidity, and some of these apples will store for 7-8 months like this. Apples are amazing in that regard. So the reason that we prune them so hard is this is the Jonagolds. This is the type of apple that I was pruning, and you can see they're just so beautiful. You have so many of these apples that are nice and red, and that's what the pruning is going to do for us. Is it's going to give us that little bit redder apple, a little larger apple, a little redder apple. As we sort through them, we pull out our cider grade, and you can see our cider grade is much greener, much smaller and much greener. And so you're gonna see how they just don't have the same color. They're gonna be smaller, and they're gonna have a lot more ones that are really green. And so that's why we prune so hard, is we want that bigger apple that's better colored, because those ones that are greener and everything else, people don't seem to like them as much. They don't think they're gonna taste as good, so they end up as cider. And so this is what's gonna happen with the ones that don't make the grade, is we're gonna press them into cider. And so, be it we need apples for cider, would prefer to have more pretty apples so that we can have more apples to sell. So that's why we do it. Thank you all for watching. We enjoy doing these videos, and we'll try to do more of them here in the future. We've been a little lax on doing some of them, so thank you all.